A story that once felt like a niche conspiracy theory is now front-page news, casting a long, uncomfortable shadow over the House of Windsor. It began with hushed speculation in obscure forums and gossip threads, but it's now grown into a public spectacle. Core accusation? That Meghan and Harry did not welcome their two children through a traditional pregnancy, but instead arranged for a surrogate behind closed doors, then allegedly concealed the entire process. This isn't some petty dig or internet troll campaign. According to one woman, who calls herself DL, this is a reality she claims to have lived. She alleges she was the surrogate who carried Archie and Lilibet, fully contracted, fully monitored, and eventually discarded without so much as a thank you. And in her telling, she didn't just bring the children into the world. She also kept a meticulous archive of proof she now intends to reveal. Today, we're peeling back the layers of this explosive saga. We'll look at why this claim is sending shockwaves through royal circles, media boardrooms, and the court of public opinion. We'll examine why Meghan and Harry's silence has become the loudest part of the story, and what it could mean if any of these allegations are true. So settle in, because this isn't just about one couple's personal choices. It's about the very concept of legitimacy in a family that has built its entire existence on bloodlines and tradition. Let's start with DL herself, the woman at the epicenter of this storm. DL isn't hiding behind a blurry avatar or a burner account. She has stepped forward, fully named and fully convinced that her story deserves to be heard. Her version of events reads almost like a dramatic miniseries. She claims that in 2018, not long after Meghan and Harry exchanged vows under the gaze of millions, she was approached by an elite surrogacy agency in California. She says she was presented with an opportunity that was both lucrative and highly confidential: to carry the child of one of the world's most famous couples. According to DL, the arrangement came with more restrictions than she ever imagined. She was relocated to an undisclosed residence, placed under constant care, and forbidden from disclosing a word to anyone outside a tight circle of handlers. Most astonishingly, DL asserts that she retained records of every interaction: hospital appointment logs, contracts, payment schedules, and email exchanges with intermediaries. In her mind, this wasn't just about money, it was about transparency, something she says she was promised but never received. For a long time, these were just claims confined to obscure corners of the internet. But when DL went public, everything changed. Almost overnight, the accusations turned into a wildfire. Suddenly, those old clips, once dismissed as petty bullying, started making the rounds again. Remember the viral videos where Meghan's midsection appeared to change shape dramatically between appearances? The footage showing her bending over, with what looked suspiciously like padding shifting under her dress. Back then, major outlets ridiculed these theories. But in the wake of DL's confession, even some seasoned royal journalists have conceded the optics have always been odd. And then there's the timeline of Archie's birth itself. According to official statements, Meghan gave birth on May 6, 2019. But within mere hours, she was back home, beaming for the cameras. No exhausted mother in a hospital gown. No standard hospital photo op. Just Harry delivering the news alone, in front of a horse stable, like a man trying to look composed while barely holding in the truth. People were puzzled in real time. But in hindsight, many are saying it feels more like a staged performance than ever. DL claims she expected some form of acknowledgement, perhaps a discreet assurance that her role would be honored in private, even if never revealed publicly. Instead, she says she was effectively cut off. No follow-up care, no gratitude, just a cold wall of legal threats whenever she tried to reach out. If her claims are genuine, this is not just a private betrayal. It's a calculated deception on a scale the royal family has rarely seen. But before we assume the worst, let's take a moment to understand why this story is so much more than gossip. Because whether you believe DL or not, her allegations strike at the most sensitive nerve in royal life: the issue of succession. According to the old royal edicts still governing the Windsor line, a legitimate heir must be born of the body of the royal mother. That archaic language, born of the body, might sound outdated, but it remains the benchmark. If a child is born through surrogacy and this fact is concealed, it could potentially nullify their place in the line of succession altogether. That's why insiders say Buckingham Palace is on high alert. If evidence ever becomes public and withstands scrutiny, the implications are mind-boggling. We're talking about a scenario where Archie and Lilibet's titles could be frozen or even revoked. A scenario where Harry and Meghan's carefully constructed public story is exposed as, at best, incomplete and, at worst, intentionally misleading. This is the nightmare scenario palace aides have reportedly been whispering about in the corridors. Constitutional crisis with no precedent and no clear roadmap. But the damage isn't just confined to the monarchy. Across the Atlantic, the commercial empire the Sussexes built is showing cracks. Remember Spotify? The multi-million-dollar deal to produce a slate of podcasts that were supposed to redefine modern storytelling? That relationship dissolved in spectacular fashion. First, it seemed like a garden-variety fallout over creative differences. But now, viewed through the lens of DL's claims, it looks like an early sign that not everyone was convinced by Harry and Meghan's narrative. One senior executive at Spotify went so far as to call the couple grifters. Sounded petty at the time, but now some people are wondering if it was a blunt assessment of what was going on behind the scenes. And then there's Netflix, the other pillar of the Sussex brand. That partnership has produced one high-profile docuseries and a lot of unfulfilled promises. With DL's accusations swirling, sources inside Netflix are reportedly combing through everything: scripts, interview transcripts, footage, trying to determine whether any content could be considered misleading. For a platform that prides itself on authenticity, being caught broadcasting a narrative that omits something as significant as a surrogacy arrangement would be a major liability. Perhaps the most conspicuous silence, though, has come from Oprah Winfrey. This is the same Oprah who handed Meghan and Harry the most powerful stage imaginable to share their truth. And now, nothing. Not a single public statement. People have noticed. Because Oprah's silence isn't just about caution, it suggests she's waiting to see whether the story implodes. While all this is happening, the Sussexes themselves have retreated behind their walls. In the past, Meghan was never shy about confronting negative press. She would issue statements, file lawsuits, or appear on talk shows to deliver her version of events. But this time, nothing but radio silence. That absence of a clear denial has only made the speculation more intense. Reporters are dwindling, critics are emboldened, and everyone is asking the same question. If this woman is lying, why not prove it? Meanwhile, DL has been anything but quiet. She has publicly dared Meghan and Harry to submit to a DNA test, conducted by an independent lab, to finally put the speculation to rest. That ultimatum has turned the story into a standoff. On one side, a woman who says she carried royal blood. On the other, two people who refuse to respond. And in the middle, a public that has run out of patience. To understand how we got here, you have to look at the broader arc of Harry and Meghan's life after stepping back from royal duties. They presented themselves as truth-tellers, determined to expose hypocrisy. And the world was hungry for that narrative. But there's a catch to building your brand on transparency. If you get caught withholding even one colossal secret, the backlash is nuclear. And that's why even former allies have gone quiet. Celebrity endorsements have slowed to a trickle. Invitations to big events have dried up. Publicists are quietly warning their clients to wait and see, because if DL's claims hold up, and that's still a giant if, the fallout will be unlike anything modern royalty has ever seen. It's no longer a matter of whether the truth will come out. It's a question of when and what it will cost. To fully grasp why this story has become such a lightning rod, you have to look back at how the British monarchy has always balanced image and reality. Throughout history, the Windsors have been experts at crafting a spotless facade. When the cracks appeared, scandals, affairs, family feuds, the royal institution would close ranks, issue carefully worded statements, and wait for the uproar to fade. It was a time-tested formula. Control the narrative, never confirm too much, and count on the public's fascination to keep the institution alive. But we're no longer in the age of discreet palace memos and loyal newspapers protecting royal secrets. We live in an era where every rumor goes global in seconds, where every slip-up is archived, dissected, and reposted by millions of people who think of themselves as amateur detectives. And that's precisely why DL's claims are so uniquely dangerous. They didn't emerge in a vacuum. They surfaced in an environment already primed to question the Sussexes' every move. Ever since Harry and Meghan walked away from royal duties, their image has been polarizing. To some, they're courageous outsiders exposing a cold institution. To others, they're opportunists who fled to California to monetize their titles while attacking the family that gave them their platform. That division created fertile ground for any narrative that painted them as inauthentic. When DL stepped forward, her story felt like the final puzzle piece for those who never fully trusted the Sussexes. But beyond the headlines and hashtags, the legal questions are what could turn this from a scandal into a full-blown constitutional reckoning. If DL's evidence, assuming it exists, proves her involvement beyond dispute, it would force Buckingham Palace into decisions with no historical precedent. Consider this. The monarchy's legitimacy is rooted in centuries of tradition. Titles and succession are not merely symbolic. They are governed by explicit legal frameworks. One of the most pivotal documents is the 1917 Letters Patent issued by King George V. In that decree, it states that royal titles are reserved for children lawfully begotten of the body of a royal mother. This phrase, though archaic, is precise. If a child is born through surrogacy and that fact is not disclosed, there is an argument, however controversial, that the child's title could be invalid. Legal scholars have already begun speculating on what would happen if such a case were proven in court. Would Archie and Lilibet lose their princely designations? Would they be removed from the official line of succession? Would Parliament step in to clarify the rules, or would the royal household handle it internally? No one knows, and that uncertainty is exactly why the palace has remained silent. The Windsors are masters of never reacting until they absolutely must. But behind the scenes, you can bet advisors are weighing every possible scenario. Because if there's one thing the monarchy fears more than scandal, it's ambiguity. While the palace quietly strategizes, the commercial fallout continues to ripple outward. Netflix executives are reportedly reviewing every piece of Sussex content with a fine-toothed comb. They're trying to determine whether any statements in the documentaries about the children's births could be legally problematic. Because if even a single episode is found to contain misrepresentations, the platform could be exposed to lawsuits from investors or advertisers. And it's not just streaming services feeling the heat. Publishers are rereading Harry's memoir, Spare, looking for any passages that could become evidence in future litigation. One insider described the mood in the publishing world as nervous, noting that no one wants to be linked to a potentially fraudulent narrative. In Hollywood, where image is everything, the Sussexes have always enjoyed a peculiar cachet, royal enough to be fascinating but rebellious enough to seem relatable. That balance is now at risk. Brands that once scrambled to align themselves with the couple's humanitarian message are quietly reconsidering. Sponsorship deals that seemed like sure things are being delayed or canceled. Even A-list friends are keeping their distance. The same celebrities who once rushed to post supportive messages have gone conspicuously quiet. Oprah's silence is the most telling of all. For years, Oprah has been synonymous with empathy and truth-telling. Her special with Harry and Meghan was a cultural event, a moment when the couple shared their grievances with the world. But if the story holds any water, it means Oprah, however unwittingly, provided a platform for a version of events that may have omitted a critical fact. That's why her refusal to comment isn't just about caution. It's about protecting her own brand from the fallout. Meanwhile, public interest in the scandal keeps growing. News outlets across Europe are reportedly investing in deep-dive investigations. Unlike UK media, which must navigate stricter defamation laws, many European publications face fewer barriers to publishing unverified claims, so long as they're clearly labeled as allegations. And that's how this story is evolving. It's no longer just about whether DL's account is true. It's about the fact that it exists at all, and that no one has convincingly refuted it. The longer Meghan and Harry remain silent, the more room there is for speculation. The more space there is for rumor to become consensus. Supporters argue that silence is a dignified response, a refusal to dignify lies with a reaction. Critics say it's an admission of guilt. And in the vacuum of clarity, public opinion is shifting. Polls in the UK show record-low trust in the Sussexes. In the US, where their popularity has always been higher, support has plummeted. Commentators who once praised their candor now accuse them of hiding behind lawyers. And all the while, DL is moving forward with her plans. She's reportedly signed agreements to appear on multiple platforms. She's hinted that she will reveal parts of her documentation in phases. an approach designed to maintain public interest and keep the pressure on. Her most provocative claim remains the DNA challenge. She insists that a simple, independently administered test would settle the matter once and for all. And here's the reality. If Meghan and Harry were to agree to that test and it confirmed Meghan as the biological mother, the scandal would evaporate overnight. Their critics would have to retreat. The deal would lose credibility. But the couple's refusal, or even their delay, has become the story. In a world that demands transparency, anything less feels suspect. And that's the paradox of the modern monarchy. For centuries, discretion was power. The less you explained, the stronger your image remained. But in today's media landscape, secrecy isn't seen as dignified. It's seen as suspicious. Which brings us to the most uncomfortable truth. None of this is happening in isolation. It's unfolding in a world that's already skeptical of institutions, already primed to believe that powerful people lie when it suits them. And that's why so many people are willing to take DL at her word, without a shred of published evidence. Because this isn't just a story about Meghan and Harry anymore. It's about the public's appetite for authenticity, about the fragility of reputation in an age of endless receipts. It's also about two children who never asked to be part of this circus. No matter how this ends, Archie and Lilibet will grow up reading these headlines. They'll see the speculation, and they'll wonder what was true and what was invented. And that's the tragedy at the heart of this saga. As the days go by, the stakes keep climbing. DL's interview airs, and if it includes credible documentation, the fallout could be irreversible. If it fizzles, the Sussexes will claim vindication, but the damage to their brand may never fully heal. Either way, one thing is certain. The era when a single press release could smother a scandal is over. This is the age of perpetual scrutiny, an age where every unanswered question becomes a conspiracy theory. And Meghan and Harry, who built their new life on the promise of openness, are now caught in the same trap they once criticized the palace for using: silence. As the world waits, the questions keep multiplying. Will Buckingham Palace be forced to address the allegations in public? Will legal action unfold behind closed doors? Will DL release her files to the world? No one knows, but everyone is watching. And until someone speaks definitively, the story isn't going anywhere. It's only getting bigger,